3 spine-chilling true stories of cursed summer nights, the sinister secrets finally exposed. Clara had always believed Maplewood to be a safe haven, a bubble of serenity cradling her and her 2 children. But those illusions shattered the night she heard the rustling outside, the kind that buried dread deep in your gut. It was a quiet summer evening, the sun hanging low, casting long shadows that stretched and twisted. After a week of juggling work and parenting, Clara settled onto her porch, a sense of normalcy enveloping her like the warm air. Her kids were at a neighbor's sleepover, laughter still echoing in her mind from the town's recent summer block party. But things can change in an instant, especially where darkness lurks. As Clara gazed down her typically inviting street, her heart sank into her stomach. Where were the porch lights? The comforting glow of her neighbors? Instead, shadows danced like phantoms, and the world turned silent. Shivers crawled up her spine as she strained to hear over the oppressive quiet. Just as she opened her door, a familiar figure stumbled into view. Lily, her daughter's best friend, emerged from the tree lean, disheveled and trembling. Clara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Lily's wide eyes darted around as if hunted. The man in the shadows. She whispered, almost as if invoking an ancient curse. Clara tried to brush it off, childhood tales should mean nothing. But fear burrowed into her mind, and the echo of legends told in hushed tones grew louder, whispers grew around her home, dark sounds creeping into her mind, forcing her to confront the shadows flitting at the edge of the woods. They felt predatory, watching. Neighbors those she had always trusted gathered in desperate clusters, voices hushed, glancing towards the forest with knowing eyes. She felt a chill crawl up her spine, crippling her sense of safety. Panic pooled in her stomach, and her instincts screamed at her to flee back inside. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Clara desperately needed answers, driven by a dark urge that pushed her to reach out to her estranged brother, David the journalist who wasn't afraid to unearth Maplewood's hidden horrors. As she awaited his arrival, the darkness thickened, suffocating her. Her heart thundered as she caught sight of figures moving through the trees, masked and shrouded in enigmatic dread. They slipped between homes like nightmares, each step chilling the air further. The cool night turned frigid, every breath a haunting reminder that something sinister was finally emerging from the town's depths. Her stomach tied in knots as she recognized a symbol, the same she remembered from a haunting family story, a secret buried among her ancestors. As the masked figures loomed closer, she realized their menacing intent was more than myth, it threatened the very heart of her family. Where were her children? And what would the rising darkness unveil before the sun broke through? Clara's resolve hardened. She had to protect her children and her home, even if it meant wading into a nightmare she never anticipated. Clara's heart raced as she peered through the window, each breath feeling like a gasp against the freezing air that poured into the house. The flickering streetlights fought against the oppressive black around them, the masked figures' dark silhouettes now approaching, clashing with everything she believed about her quiet town. She stepped back, pressed against the wall, breath shallow, spine tingling with fear. Those symbols, carved not only into wood but into the very fabric of her family's history, lingered in her thoughts. Are they here for revenge? Echoes of old stories danced in her mind. Sacrifices, rumors of the cursed nights, the legends seemed to bleed into reality. Clara's phone buzzed violently on the table, a single message flashing across the screen. David's name brought a flicker of hope amidst the dread. I'm almost there. Don't go outside. It's not safe. But Clara couldn't wait. What if the figures threatened her children? What if they knew? The thought propelled her forward, tugging her hand towards the door. No more hiding. She would meet the shadows head dash on. As she threw the door open, a cold wind whipped around her, biting against her skin, but Clara steeled herself. The night was alive with whispers, murmurs tangled with the rustling trees as the figures vanished into the darkness behind her neighbors' homes. Where were they going? Lily. She called out, voice wavering. Where are you? Silence pressed against her, thick and suffocating. A rustle to her left sent her heart racing. She turned, eyes scanning the shrouded forms darting closer through the trees. One of them slipped into the faint light. Clara felt the ground beneath her shift, a creeping sense of panic gripping her again. This one wasn't one of the figures. It was a child, a small, frightened girl, dirt streaked across her tear-stained face. Please, you have to help me, she whimpered, her voice small and shattered. They're coming. Clara's instincts kicked in. Where's Lily? The girl shook her head, burying her face into Clara's side. The shadows took her. They said they want to get back at you. For what you did. What I did. Clara's mind raced, searching through her memories like a frantic clock. She was just a mother, trying to protect her family. What do you even mean? Your family, the girl whispered, peering out towards the darkness. You did something terrible. You're marked. Clara's skin broke out in chills, realizing this was much bigger than just her uncertainty. She was part of a curse that stretched beyond her reach. The symbols, the whispers, the masked figures, they all tied back to her lineage. But how was she entwined in such horror? The girl's voice faded. Clara heard footsteps nearby. They were closing in. Shadows began to unfurl, forming phantoms creeping towards them. With trembling hands, she grasped the girl's arm. Run! She shouted, pushing her toward the house. But the girl hesitated, her wide-eyed fear intensifying. They won't let you leave. The air turned electric, vibrating with terror. Clara spun back toward the shadows, where figures were now emerging from every direction, slowly surrounding them. David! She screamed, desperation creeping into her voice as she drew back, trying to formulate a plan. What had she unleashed? Would her brother make it in time? She needed answers, now. But clarity was eclipsed by the mounting dread that clawed at her insides. The figures drew closer, sinister shapes melding into her worst nightmares. As a haunting voice rang out, "You belong to us," darkness erupted around her, swallowing her scream whole. What awaited next in the depths of Maplewood? Would Clara find a way to save the night, or would she be forced into the very horrors she sought to escape? Clara's senses dimmed as the shadows enveloped her. She felt a sudden chill wash over her, the air thick with malevolence. The ground trembled slightly beneath her feet, as if the earth itself was alive and aware of the darkness brewing. The girl clutched her tightly, her breath quickening, panic rising in harmony with Clara's own. Where are they? Clara whispered urgently, scanning the void that surrounded them, searching for any signs of hope. They want you to remember, the child murmured back, her eyes wide, glistening with unshed tears. You need to remember. Clara's mind raced through fragmented memories, her childhood home, the stories told by her grandmother during stormy nights, images of a dark ritual, a circle of people dressed in those very same masks now approaching. What had she done? A low chant began, rhythmic and hypnotic, echoing from the figures that had formed a tight circle. Their masked faces rose in unison, eyes glowing with a sinister fire, and Clara felt an overwhelming compulsion to step closer. What was it that they wanted her to remember? As though sensing her inner turmoil, one figure stepped forward, its breath fogging in the cold air. Clara, it rasped, voice laden with an ancient gravel. We are the keepers of your family's secret. You thought you could escape it, but it is a part of you. The girl whimpered beside her, and Clara turned, desperation clawing at her throat. What do they mean? Listen. The girl placed a hand over Clara's heart, which thudded wildly beneath her fingers. You have to remember, or they will take you all. The chant grew louder, vibrating through her bones. Shadows twisted into forms, faces she recognized. Friends and family from years past, their smiles warped into grimaces of rage. They reached for her, frozen in place, mouths moving but no sound emerging. Clara staggered backward, her pulse hammering in her ears. No! She screamed, the sound swallowed whole by the deepening night around them. She had to break free from this nightmare. Yet the girl's grip tightened, pulling her back to the haunting reality. You have to tell them what you did. Forced to confront her past, Clara felt the ground sway under her, and suddenly it became clear. The accident. It replayed vividly now. The fire, the screams, the families torn apart. All because of a choice she had made. She had buried the truth deep within her, but it had never truly disappeared. It festered, waiting for the moment to resurface. What do you want from me? Clara managed to shout into the darkness. The figures moved closer, their shapes swirling like an ominous storm. We demand restitution, the chant resounded, the sound wrapping itself around her like chains. Memories flooded her senses, sights and sounds of that fateful night. It wasn't just her fault. They had all contributed. But guilt consumed her, a relentless tide rising with each second. Could she repent? Would the shadows ever let them go? Tell them. The girl cried, voice nearly drowned out, fear morphing into urgency. You have to do it now while there's still time. As the chant crescendoed into a furious roar, one face pushed through the mass, a familiar face, twisted by anguish, her mother's, Clara. Came the haunting wail, reverberating through the air, sending chills coursing down Clara's spine. You cannot run any longer. With that, the world snapped back to focus. Clara turned to the girl, who nodded, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks. In that moment, Clara knew she had a chance to confront her past. But was she ready to face the obliteration that came with it? Just as determination took hold, those masked figures surged forward, shadows spilling like ink across the ground. Clara's heart pounded, terror knotted in her stomach, threatening to swallow her whole as she stood on the precipice of her fate. Would she uncover the truth in time to save her family? The darkness was hungry. What would become of Clara? Time was slipping away and the shadows were closing in. Clara felt the icy grasp of despair clawing at her insides as the shadows converged. She could hear the chilling echoes of the chant growing louder, vibrating in the very marrow of her bones. The figures, with their grotesque masks, inched closer, their movements fluid yet unnerving, like a predator stalking its helpless prey. Clara, you must tell them. The girl's voice pierced through the chaos, but it sounded so distant, almost swallowed by the deafening chant. Clara turned to the girl, her eyes pleading for answers, for guidance, but all she saw was fear reflected back at her. The ground beneath them felt alive, shifting and undulating as if it shared in the longing for justice. Clara fought against the rising panic, trying to ground herself. What do I need to tell them? She shouted, almost choking on the words as they clawed their way out. What do they want from me? The masked figures continued to advance, their twisted forms pulsing with ominous energy. One stepped forward, its breath steaming in the night air, the malice practically radiating off of it. Your silence has cost us dearly. Speak. It rasped, and the chant shifted, seamlessly flowing into the demand. Clara's heart raced. It felt as if the shadows were pushing her toward a precipice, and one step could mean her collapse into a void of horrors. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. She kept repeating, hoping that someone would listen, that someone would understand. But their expressions were vacuous, unyielding. The faces of her lost family members loomed, etched with sorrow and fury, their eyes hollow and yet somehow piercing into her very soul. You must own your truth, Clara, her mother's apparition cried, the grief mingling with rage. You cannot erase what you did. The walls of her memory crumbled as she recalled fragments of that night, the urgency of panic, the flames devouring everything, and the desperate screams filling the air like a symphony of despair. She had tried to forget, to bury it deep and never think of it again. But here it was, clawing its way back to the surface, each shadow a reminder that her past was not so easily cast aside. "Please," she gasped, her breath hitching, terror clawing at her throat. "I'm sorry." The figures halted, the chant momentarily paused. "What do you offer us?" The sinister voice hissed once more, penetrating the silence that enveloped them. Clara's stomach churned. "What do you want from me?" she cried, though she felt as if she already knew the answer. "You must choose." The girl's voice trembled as she stepped forward, too close to the swirling darkness. "You can confess, or you can lose everything." Clara stared into the abyss, knowing despair and terror were all that awaited her if she turned away from the truth. What could she possibly say that would satisfy the bloodthirsty shapes closing in? The shadows felt alive, tasting her fear like a predator circling its prey. Just as uncertainty danced in her mind, the girl raised a small hand, a flicker of something behind her wide eyes. "Remember what you must before the final silence falls." It felt as if the world held its breath. Clara's heart thrummed as she absorbed the words. What final silence? What awaited her at the end of this torment? Suddenly, the chanting intensified again, a cacophony so overwhelming it threatened to drown her in its chaos. In that very moment, Clara made her choice, the gravity of her actions crashing down upon her. She took a deep breath, ready to unveil the truth long buried, her body trembling, bracing against the inevitable reckoning, but just as the words bubbled to the surface, a searing pain shot through her. A flash of blinding light erupted from the shadows, blinding her, a howling wind tearing the air apart as Clara screamed, her voice lost amidst the madness. Would the truth finally set her free, or would it condemn her and those she loved to the very darkness she sought to escape? As the shadows merged, swirling in an unholy dance, Clara braced herself for the reckoning, knowing full well that nothing could prepare her for what awaited on the other side. Time was stretching thin, and the darkness was hungry for blood. What awaited her in the enveloping shadow? Would the truth release them or tether them to a fate more terrifying than silence itself? The blinding light faded, and Clara found herself engulfed in a disorienting silence. The shadows had retreated momentarily, but their presence still lingered, a dark weight pressing down on her chest. Heart racing, Clara squinted against the afterglow, searching for a way out of this nightmare. "Clara," the girl's voice broke through the eerie calm. She stood at a distance, slight and fragile, her features marred by an unearthly glow. "It's not over. What you must say, it's the only path to freedom." Clara fought back the bile rising in her throat. The faces, her family's faces, still loomed in her mind, accusing and sorrowful. She felt trapped between the longing for redemption and the fear that revealing the truth would unleash even worse horrors. "What if I can't go through with it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll know. They always do," the girl warned, stepping closer. The masked figures were stirring again, their chant returning with an unsettling harmony, one that reverberated through the ground and rattled Clara's bones. "They hunger for your truth." Just as panic threatened to swallow her whole, she recalled the flames, so fierce and consuming. That moment when everything changed. Her heart sank. What if the truth only brings more pain? She asked, fighting back tears. The girl hesitated, the shadows flickering, as if the night itself was responding to Clara's doubts. "Pain can cleanse but silence can destroy," she replied, glancing sideways as the figures shifted, their movements growing faster. Their chant rose in intensity, growing into a frenzy of demands echoing in her mind. Clara's breath quickened as she felt the ground pulsate, like a heartbeat beneath her feet. "They want me to confess," she cried out, the words bursting forth in a single breath. "But what if I can't face it? What if I..." Before she could finish, the closest figure lunged forward, its eyes burning with fervor. "Your hesitance only seals your fate. Speak, and all shall be revealed." Clara stumbled back, feeling the icy tendrils of fear wrap around her neck. I didn't mean to one choice." The figure boomed, echoed by a chorus of the crowd, growing in volume, drowning out her thoughts. "One name, one truth." Her mind spiraled, the shadows mocking her, her thoughts entangled in a web of guilt. How could she reveal the secret's own? What would she lose? Who would be the victim of this confession? I was scared. She finally confessed, the admission ripping through her. I was so scared but the moment hung in the air, caught between desperation and inevitable doom. A surge of energy crackled around her, as if the shadows had fed off her fear, growing more powerful, more alive. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced her side, stealing her breath. Clara doubled over, clutching her waist, but there was nothing there, only the echo of a blade, its mere suggestion cutting deeper than any physical wound. Time is ending, Clara. The girl's voice grew urgent. Make your choice: sacrifice your past or face the final silence. The crying figures loomed closer, almost pressing in on her, their faces a grotesque collage of faces she had lost. In this fever of choice, a painful memory crashed back. She could picture the lighter, the flames, the scream. With every breath, more moments flooded back, and the weight of her silence slammed into her like a freight train. Trembling, she felt her resolve wavering again. What awaited was uncertain, but Clara knew she faced something worse than shadows, her own self. She stammered, panic clawing at her throat. I'm ready. I will. In that moment of clarity, the shadows erupted, howling like a winter storm, drowning her words as they swirled around her like a tempest, eager to snatch her away. Speak now or be forever silenced. The chant pierced the chaos, reverberating within her soul, demanding her confession as she teetered on the brink of truth and oblivion. Would the act of voicing her guilt set her free, or would it plunge her even deeper into nightmares unspeakable? As the shadows surged, Clara inhaled deeply, ready to unleash whatever horrors lay within her heart, but what awaited her as she stood before the abyss, trembling at the edge? Would the truth heal or lead to a fate darker than her wildest fears? The shadows coiled tighter around Clara, each chant sealing her fate like a vice. Her vision blurred, caught suffocatingly between the cries of the figures and the weight of her own heart. What was left to lose? Dread whispered a promise of damnation, while truth dangled just out of reach. Clara, the girl's luminous gaze was steady amidst the storm. They want to hear your name. And for a fleeting moment, the memory of laughter danced through her mind, a sunny day with her family, before everything changed. The bright memory flickered like a fading candle, but the heat remained. Would it burn the shadows away? Mom. Dad. The names echoed in her chest. She saw their faces, joy mixed with love. But then the fire returned, burning high and devouring all beneath it. Would they even recognize her now? Now. The masked figure cried, reaching forward, hands clawing through the heavy air filled with desperation and despair. I am. Clara's voice faltered, her heart racing, as the world warped around her. Speak. They screamed, the urgency rising like a tidal wave, the chant taking on a life of its own. You cannot escape the truth. It binds you. Your time is slipping away, Clara. The girl was frantic, both pleading and accusatory. Sacrifices must be made. Sacrifice? Clara snapped back, the anger fury bubbling over. What do I have left to sacrifice? I've already lost everything. The surge of power pulsed beneath her feet, and anger transformed the climate. Alongside her fear rose a new energy, stitching together the remnants of courage she had nearly lost. I didn't mean to help them. She shouted, the words erupting from her mouth like a volcano. I was scared. I tried to stop it. Stop what? Murmurs tossed through the shadows, curious tones unraveling the moans. What did you help? They edged closer, the masked faces twisting in grotesque anticipation. Please, Clara. The girl begged. Reveal the truth. The shadows shrieked, one name. One truth. She clenched her fists. Images of protests, flames, pain, and cries twisted through her mind, amplifying her pulse. It was all my fault. The tremor in her voice betrayed the storm within. I shouldn't have lit the candles. A stunned realization flooded through the shadows, briefly quieting them. And then the madness returned, this time with an edge of rage. More. More. They roared, demanding the weight of her confession. I thought I could save them. Clara cried, hands gripping her hair as she trembled. But I was too late. The murmurs erupted into wild chaos, echoing her fear. The masked figures surged forward, their limbs intertwining, a writhing mass of humanity driven by their insatiable hunger for her sins. Face the consequence of knowing, Clara. Hot breath flooded her nostrils, followed by a chilling realization. There was a price to pay here. Each syllable poured from her mouth like poison, contorting into something darker. How could I do this to them? She muttered, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to be brave. The abyss loomed heavier, both consuming and revealing. Clara clung to her last shred of sanity, and in a final act of defiance, she stepped into the dark. I am sorry. I am so sorry. The figures stopped their chant, and silence fell as if the world itself held its breath. Clara stood at the crossroads of punishment and release, trembling beneath the weight of her words left unspoken, and just when it seemed the darkness was ready to swallow her whole, a blinding light erupted from her core, illuminating everything for a heartbeat. Shadows recoiled. Was this her way out? Or had she just unleashed something far worse? As the radiance waned, Clara stood alone once more, the masked figures frozen in an eerie stillness. But the girl stepped forward, sadness etched on her face, whispering, "You must make your choice or face eternal hunger." What would she choose now, knowing the depths of her truth could unleash a fate even darker than before? The shadows trembled at Clara's words, a dissonant howl escaping from the masked figures, vibrating through the air like the striking of a cursed bell. The girl maintained her sad gaze, urgency lacing her voice. You have to decide, Clara. Choose before they drag you down. Clara's breath hitched in her throat, a mix of fear and disbelief. A choice. What choice could exist when encased in this nightmare? But the light that briefly illuminated her had birthed a flicker of hope, one buried under layers of guilt and despair. What do you mean? Clara asked, her voice barely a whisper. The noise around her filled with a hushed expectation, as if the very air was waiting for her next move. The girl stepped closer, her luminous eyes wide. If you embrace the truth, they will unleash you. But if you hold back, her voice trembled, you'll join their eternal hunger. Clara's mind raced. Was this a trick? The shadows shifted, hungry whispers rising, chanting her name in a sinister round. Truth or sacrifice echoed in the depths of her being. Could surrender really grant her freedom? Or was it just another trap? The memories surged, her family, laughter melding with shouts, the moment she lit the candles that started it all. A flickering flame that burned brighter than any joy. Could she claim her truth in this twisted trial? In those agonizing seconds, Clara felt her heart pounding like a war drum. I lit the candles, she finally said, voice steadying. I thought I could change things. Bring people together. The shadows leaned closer, their grotesque faces almost more alive than her own, fueled by her confession. But all I did was create a blaze that took lives. I thought. Pain gripped her throat. I thought I could save them. Sudden screams erupted from the crowd of shadows, twisting into shrieks of approval. More. Let her suffer more for her sins. Stop. Clara's voice rose, infused with an unexpected strength. I won't let you turn my mistake into something darker. I won't live in this guilt. The girl shot her a desperate look. You can't hold back. They feed on your fear. Clara clenched her fists, feeling both a surge of anger and a pulse of desperation. Could this be a way out or just a deeper plunge into despair? Then she hesitated, rocking on her heels as a shudder rippled through her body. I choose the truth. The moment the words escaped her lips, the shadows convulsed violently, their chants morphing into a chaotic frenzy. They lunged towards her, snaking like vipers eager for their prey, but the blinding light within Clara flared anew. The brilliance intertwined with her confession, filling the darkness with blazing clarity. "Face your fears," roared the disembodied voices, their delight mingled with horror. "Unravel the lies." But just as quickly, a deep rumble sounded from the depths of the blackness, threatening to consume her. Clara staggered back, the ground trembling beneath her. The figure's hunger morphed into something far more sinister, each of them clawing at her conviction, seeking to unravel her very essence. "Let it be known, Clara," they chanted, a choir of twisted hopes and nightmares. "What will you sacrifice?" With every ounce of resolve, she gritted her teeth and spoke the unspeakable. "I'll expose my truth, and whatever comes after, I'll face." A wave of energy exploded from her core, the light colliding with the shadows. Was it enough? Clara's heart raced in her chest as she felt the ground drop beneath her. The world warped and spun, pulling apart. But even as the figures shrieked and twisted in anguish, one lingering thought rooted itself in her mind: what if the truth was more damning than her deepest fears could imagine? As she embraced the chaos, everything shattered around her. Pieces of darkness fell away, but a horrifying realization loomed near. There was a stirring in the shadows, a sinister presence reawakening, one she had not yet confronted. Does true freedom really come at a cost, or had she just invited the ultimate horror into her life? With shards of panic darting through her veins, Clara wondered if she still had time to escape from the hunt that had just begun. The void opened up around Clara, a swirling mass of shadows and blinding light. The ground felt like it was falling away, reality twisting into something unrecognizable. Her heart pounded in her ears, a frantic drumbeat keeping time with the chaos. As the darkness convulsed, it began to pull back, revealing glimpses of an unseen world behind it. Clara's breath hitched as she spotted flickering images, faces from her past distorted in pain and anguish, victims caught in her fiery memories. The cheerful laughter of her childhood crumbled into agonized screams as the flames reached out from her guilt, pulling at her very soul. The masked figures fell into a hush, their grotesque eyes focused intently on her. The girl still lingered in the shadows, her luminous eyes pleading. "You must stabilize the truth, Clara. Don't let them take it from you." But which truth? The one she had accepted, or another buried deeper? Instinctively, Clara closed her eyes. She didn't want to see the horrors they were conjuring. She envisioned her family, their faces aglow, safe and unaware of the darkness lurking behind her past. Then came the flicker of her memories, the candlelit room, bright smiles blurring into desperate screams. She could feel their presence pressing against her, searching for weaknesses to exploit. Fear gripped her, a cold hand wrapping around her heart, squeezing until her pulse quickened. Could the shadows manifest the real horror of her guilt? Cracking her eyes open, Clara allowed the light to spill from her heart, illuminating the shadows, pushing them back even as the figures shrieked in despair. "I will not let my sins take control of me. I choose to confront what is hidden." The shadows recoiled as if stung, their tang like a cold wind wrapped around her bones, each word sent reverberations through the darkness. "Face the consequence," they hissed, the once dissonant howls turning rhythmic, like an incantation. "The truth awakens the cursed within you. Then awaken it." Clara shouted, defiance bubbling up. "I can take it." The shadows surged with renewed frenzy, clawing at her truth, trying to taint it, twisting it into something dark. Clara felt her body tremble, swimming in fear and uncertainty. Would confronting her guilt unleash an even greater horror? Sudden pain lashed at her mind, a searing agony that threatened to tear her apart from the inside. It was the truth she had buried so deep to shield herself from the hurt. Visions flashed through her, a figure looming, an embodiment of all her regrets, the essence of the fire she had ignited within. "You are nothing," it roared, its voice a guttural echo that reverberated through her bones, shaking her core. "A coward hiding behind your words." Clara staggered back, trapped between despair and fury. The ground beneath her shifted as the boundaries of reality thinned, and she was left teetering on the edge. "I am not nothing. I lit the candles, but I also learned, I learned to fight against the darkness inside. Clara's voice rang out, steadying herself against the terror surrounding her, and then, it happened. The shadows recoiled further, drawn away by her defiance. They hissed and wavered, struggling to maintain their form against her light. Yet deep beneath the turmoil of the abyss, she felt the chilling stir of something far darker, an ancient presence unraveling, hungry, searching for her. It chills ran down her spine, a realization wrapping around her. What if the power she wielded wasn't her alone? What if it belonged to the darkness, waiting for the moment she faltered? With dread pulsating through her veins, Clara knew she hadn't just invited horror into her life. She had awakened something malignant that had long lain dormant within the shadows, something that knew her fears all too well. As the dark continued to twist and shift, digging deeper into her, a thought struck like lightning. Would she have the strength to confront the haunting part of herself, or would she fall prey to the very terror she had sought to escape? The shadows beckoned, more insidious than before. Clara stood frozen, caught between fear and an unknown awakening. What emerged next would either free her or condemn her. Clara stood on the precipice, her heart racing like a caged animal. The shadows pulsed with anticipation, swirling closer, whispering her name. The atmosphere thickened with dread, each breath she took heavy with the weight of impending doom. She felt as if the ground beneath her feet would give way at any moment, swallowing her in an endless abyss. "Face your demons!" They shrieked, their voices melding into a cacophony that echoed in her mind, reverberating like a storm brewing within. "You can't escape the truth any longer." Words of defiance lingered on her lips, but dread clawed at her throat. The memories clawed their way back, vivid and suffocating, the fire licking at the edges of her consciousness. She had known darkness before, had felt it wrap around her heart like a vice. "I won't go through that again," she rasped, almost a whisper, but the shadows paid no heed. They lunged at her, a cacophony of anguished screams piercing the silence. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to remember the light, the warmth of safety cloaking her like a shield. When she opened her eyes again, the chilling figure loomed larger than before. Its features coalesced into something grotesque but familiar, hints of past lovers, friends, family, all twisted in torment. Each face flashed before her, hollow eyes burning with resentment and sorrow. "You did this to us!" they cried in unison, their voices slicing through her like ice. "No. I tried. I was a child." Clara screamed, staggering back, the ground yawning beneath her. "I didn't mean to hurt you." A sharp laugh pierced through the howling winds, jagged and laughing at her weakness. "You can't blame your age for your sins," it taunted, inching closer, its breath caressing her face like a cold draft. Clara stumbled, terror gripping her, but the light within her flared once more. "I am not afraid of you," she shouted, her voice infused with newfound strength. In that moment of defiance, a brilliant glow erupted from her heart, casting the shadows further back, yet even as they flinched, the ancient presence deep within stirred violently, a storm ready to break free. It roared with anger, a voice deep, rumbling like thunder. "Foolish girl, do you believe mere words can keep me at bay?" Trembling, Clara clenched her fists. She recalled the warmth of her family, the laughter that had once filled her home. "I will not let you win," she cried, her voice almost breaking. Each scream she had heard from her past fueled her resolve to stand tall, to counter the encroaching darkness, but the shadows retaliated, a tide surging forward, coiling around her limbs, constricting with wanton fury. There was a deep resonance of emotion around her, shadows shifting, were they feeding off her fear? The thought struck her like a knife. Was she truly fighting back, or merely prolonging the inevitable? Clara closed her eyes, the darkness and light waged war in her mind. A surge of pain sliced through her past, every regret surfacing, igniting fire across her skin. "You cannot escape who you are," it hissed, longing to drag her back into the void of regrets. "I want to be your prisoner." She fought back, looking deep within herself, grasping the truth she had buried. It wasn't just fear that called to her, but a strength, a flicker of resolve that pulsed with hope. The more she tapped into it, the more the shadows howled, betraying their vulnerability, yet doubt crept in a shroud over her newfound power. What if you're wrong? It whispered to her mind. What if embracing the truth will destroy you? With that thought, the shadows clawed forth, a deadly longing reaching for her heart. Clara felt herself faltering, her defenses crumbling. Was the darkness, after all, a part of her own making? If she were to embrace it, what horrors would be unleashed? A blinding flash of light erupted again as she roared, "I choose my path." But somewhere deep inside, a fragment of fear remained. Was her choice truly a choice, or was it the call of the darkness echoing sweetly? In an explosive clash, Clara plunged forward, battling the shadows within. And outside, desperate for resolution even as uncertainty loomed heavier than ever. As she pushed deeper into the darkness, she felt the ancient presence shift, ready to unleash its final play against her. Would she withstand the darkness threatening to consume her, or would she become it? In the residual silence after her defiance, only one question hung in the air: what was coming to claim her, and would she embrace it or be lost forever? The swirling shadows closed in around Clara, the darkness seeming to pulse with an insatiable hunger. She felt the weight of her memories crash over her like a wave, the laughter of her family, the chilling screams, the fire that had changed everything. The faces twisted into forms of anger and despair, each of them demanding what she had denied. "I understand," Clara gasped into the void, the truth clawing its way to the surface like a beast desperate for release. "I was terrified. I thought I was doing what was right, but instead, I brought ruin." The shadows flared, a rhythmic chant spiraling out of control. "Own your sins. Own your sins." Clara's heart raced, her pulse thrumming against the creeping shadows. With a deep breath, she embraced the heat in her chest, letting it expand with each confession. "My fear led me to make foolish choices. I lit the candles to bring everyone together. I thought the light would connect us, but it only drew the darkness closer." The figures recoiled slightly, as if struck by a revelation. "More!" they called. "What did you lose?" "My family," she shouted. "I lost my family. I watched helplessly as everything burned." Light streamed from Clara's heart, spilling into the shadows that surrounded her. The haunting faces shifted closer, their mouths wide in anguish, gasping at her words, momentarily still. Their spiraling movements wavered, the chant turning hesitant. "What did you sacrifice?" One figure hissed, its voice laced with contempt. "I sacrificed my truth," Clara whispered, a vibrant light shining through her, illuminating everything in its path. "I buried the hurt and ran from the ghosts. I turned my back on my pain when all I had to do was own it." The air electrified as the shadows recoiled, the chant dissembling into chaos, twisting and tumbling in response to her fierce resolution. The figures clawed at one another, hungry for substance, twisting into grotesque forms demanding more. But Clara was ready. "You will not consume this truth." With one final push, Clara unleashed her voice, echoing with rage and sorrow. "I did not mean to hurt anyone. I never wanted this. But the truth of my past has taught me. I see now I can choose to fight, to stand against the shadows that lurk in my heart." The shadows shivered, and an otherworldly wail erupted, swirling around her. Clara stepped forward, illuminating their dark forms as she pressed on. "You think you own me? You think I am afraid? I will not let you define my worth or my truth any longer." As her light broke through their sinister hold, Clara felt each layer of guilt peel away like shattered glass, confirmation of her innocence shining forth with blinding clarity. The darkness hissed, a cacophony of displeasure mixing with shock at the might she had cultivated from her pain. That I in those fleeting moments, the girl stood beside her, eyes shining brighter than stars. "You've unlocked it. The power inside. Let it save you." Clara took the girl's hand, feeling the warmth of the newfound connection. Together, They faced the swirling darkness past and present merging into clarity, all fears laid bare. "I am Clara," she declared, her voice booming against the shadows. "And I will no longer be a prisoner of my past. The truth will set me free." The shadows recoiled, swirling away, shrieking as if struck down by the very light that had surged within her. Clara felt as if she had risen above the tumult, light flooding her vision, illuminating the faces of all she had lost, transformed now from anguish into serenity. The darkness flickered like dying embers, twisting into an inky void that screamed from the depths of its despair. Clara gazed into that abyss, not with fear, but with a heart freed. The light pulsed from her, growing stronger, wrapping her in a cocoon of warmth. "Thank you," the girl whispered, smiling through tears of relief. "You've saved us." As the shadows began to dissipate into nothingness, Clara felt a softening in her chest. Could it be? Peace found her, sprawling over her mind, the weight of guilt replaced with forgiveness. The remnants of her past fell away, leaving only the echoes of love. Memories no longer haunted her but reminded her of the strength within. Clara turned to the girl, eyes shimmering. "Together we'll heal," she promised, knowing this wasn't just her fight but a shared moment of growing strength. As the final shadows dwindled, Clara took in the night. The darkness transformed into soft twilight. The faces of her family smiled back at her, lighting her path toward hope. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a promise of new beginnings. She breathed deeply, knowing that she had faced the darkness within and emerged stronger. Her heart swelled in recognizing that true light comes not from denying the past, but by embracing it, scars and all. "Now we can finally move on," Clara murmured, feeling the bonds of her lineage tighten in a way that felt like home. With one last glance back, Clara whispered to the fading darkness, "I own my truth. I own my life." And as she stepped forward, into the soft embrace of dawn, Clara knew she would never walk alone again. The shadows had lost their hold, and she was free. Don't miss a moment of this journey. You need to subscribe now to catch all exclusive tales like this one. Smash that like button to help spread the word and feed this growing family. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories, what stood out for you. And don't wait one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see what unfolds. Support matters, and it's your moment to shine.